And welcome back to game number 2 of the Amateur Invitational Tournament. We've got ourselves, once again, Literal Monkeys coming back, as well as on the red side, it's going to be Gross Incompetence playing. I am joined by, excuse me for a second, Zebra. I'm just making sure, fumbling over my words as I've changed out my caster. Zebra, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing phenomenally. How are you?
I am doing excellent. I am super hyped. As you were asking earlier, no, the silly hat is not required. It's just kind of something that happened on my stream. It is kind of built since then. But don't worry, you don't have to look nearly as ridiculous as I do.
Totally fair. Good to know, good to know.
All right, so we are into the picks and bans. This is pro drafted, so you guys get to watch through the pro draft and see what those picks are, see what those priorities are before we get into the actual picks and bans of the game itself. I also want to mention very quickly, so Grin at the moment, if you're looking at the score lines between the two teams, you're seeing the Literal Monkeys, who just won, are 1-0. That's not because it's a best of 3, that's a group stage. So over the course of the next couple of hours, they're playing in a total of 6 games, double round robin between 3 teams, and that's why Grin doesn't have a win or a loss, because this will be their first game of the day, taking on the winners of last game, who looked pretty stellar, if I say so myself. So we'll have to see if they can do it a second time this game, as the Skarner, Nautilus, Cassident banned away. No Ornn ban yet. And that's what I'm kind of nervous on. Is Grin going to ban the Ornn, the decimated top lane, or do they think they have something that can respond to it if it gets picked up once again?
Absolutely valid concerns, personally. I feel like that first pick Jinx is a very nice choice, especially from what we've seen from Literal Monkeys in the AD carry department thus far. Definitely good to have that locked in, especially considering how good Jinx has been in this past meta.
We'll have to see. And yeah, with that Jinx locked in, again, that was Literal Monkey's first pick last game as well in the pro draft. They said, you know what, we really want this champion, so once again, we're going to lock it in immediately. And Grin, oh my, a strong bottom lane they just locked in. The Kai'Sa and the Galio, we're seeing that played in pro games. Those teams, the teams that are able to pick that up, so incredibly powerful. The Galio with the 2-man taunt early game, plus a bunch of CC and damage as well. Riot, what were you thinking? Combine that with the Kai'Sa, it's going to be happy days in the bottom lane for Grin when they find those engages.
Absolutely. Now, that being said, we also have this Morgana locked in second for Literal Monkeys. Definitely a valid choice considering that Galio lock. Certainly what I would consider the right choice, along with that Sejuani pick. Definitely something we've seen pretty frequently from Pakapal. His Sejuani's been pretty clean.
Yeah, and that was banned away last game against them, so we'll have to see if they can pull that off again. Now that they actually have the champion, we'll actually get to see how well he can decimate on it. They also lock in the Morgana, most likely a support and a fantastic one to take into that Galio. She says, you know what, I've got a black shield that negates all of your engage, Galio, come at me. Keep in mind, though, it can only be on one champion at a time, so Morgana's going to have to be a little bit careful on which champion she chooses as the target for that black shield.
For sure, and that's, of course, definitely a super vital decision for that Morgana to make, as well as Pakapal having Nunu on the other team. I feel like for him would be good, especially considering Nunu is one of his personal favorite picks. So going into this, I personally feel like Literal Monkeys has a pretty solid advantage, just on that front.
I also want to give a quick shout out while we're into the second ban phase. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching. Appreciate you enjoying the tournament so far. If you are enjoying it, be sure and let the organizations and the teams know that that it is just good. It is good. And we also forgot to last game actually allow you who are in the audience to bet on which team you think is going to win. It's just on stream, and it's just stream XP is what we call it. You earn passively over time for watching. So you built up some XP from last game. Maybe you can use that to bet and win some XP back this game around. We'll open that up once we're into the actual picks and bans and get through the full picks and ban phase in the pro draft, as the Zoe and the Vladimir banned away by Grin, taking out those AP late game and early game champions respectively, making sure that there's still no chance for Literal Monkeys to play that Vladimir in the top lane and or in the mid lane as it was played last game. as the got banned by Literal Monkeys. So again, still picking off some of these top lane champions, and most likely we'll once again see Red side wait until last pick to grab a top laner, because that seems to be the target for most of these teams, is strong top laners.
For sure. Now that being said, we have seen a top lane lock, and it will be that Renekton. Ooh!
Oh, they're playing with you!
Darius! Darius for Grin.
I'm a bit nervous about that because Darius does have a lot of counter picks, and you could definitely take some strong stuff into them. However, you can see from the side of Grin, they're more focused on getting a last pick for mid master. They're mid, obviously, and hey, is he a master? No, he's gold rank, but that's okay. We'll ignore that. He is a master of the mid lane, and say that, you know, giving him the last pick, the counter pick, is going to be priority for them. And so with that Darius locked in, Ornn is going to be the counter pick for Little Monkeys. We saw it last game. Maybe by Sharp on the side of Grin. Saw that, took a couple notes, said, you know what, okay, I got an idea how to play against it. So he's feeling a little more comfortable facing off against that Ornn.
For sure. And something that I'd also like to point out here, we've seen this comp run by Literal Monkeys at least a couple of times. They've played it through pretty successfully. Ooh, and that Lux Locket is definitely what they need here to sort of boost their damage. Yeah, I personally feel as though we're looking at essentially a call and response. Literal Monkeys is looking at Grin's comp, and they're really just picking pretty well around it. You know, if you look at them, we're gonna pick that Galio, so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Is that they're trying to use the information they get by Red side being one of the teams that has to kind of pick a little bit earlier, and then it can be responded by Literal Monkeys. That said, it's the response from Grin into that mid lane with the Syndra is what it is for Midmaster, feeling comfortable there. We'll see if that CC can come through. They've got themselves a bit of a tank with that Nunu and Galio, and on the other side, Literal Monkeys have themselves that Sejuani and Ornn. We'll see how the teams balance out once we actually get into game. So we will be switching to the true picks and bans, and that gives us an opportunity to break down the compositions in a little bit more detail. So anything from you that's immediately standing out?
Personally, I definitely am looking at the Syndra pick as something that I haven't really seen very often, especially at this level of play. You don't see a lot of Syndra players, especially not into a Lux. It's just an uncommon matchup, and that's something that I'm really excited to see come to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. Syndra, one of those champions that once she's got that unleashed power ultimate, I love it because it will chase people no matter how far they go. It'll chase you down and eventually find the kill if it's enough damage, and Syndra can definitely build enough damage. And when you're looking at the lineup from Literal Monkeys, there's a couple of champions on their roster at this point that you're going to be wanting. Sejuani, a good frontline tank, but has that boar rush and has been able to use it to jump over walls. Lux, who's going to be playing really far in the back line if she tries to throw out that shield and flash to escape. Doesn't matter, Syndra will still find you with that unleashed power. Orbs will follow you down. Excited to see how that works out, but she's a bit immobile in the early game, which opens her up for ganking, especially from a Sejuani. It's so easy to roam around from almost behind those turrets and find the Glacial Prison to lock down that Syndra. So it's going to be eyes on Midmaster on the positioning of that champion to make sure that she doesn't get shoved out of lane by the Lux, and also doesn't get ganked by the Sejuani.
For sure, and that being said, personally looking at both of these team comps, I feel as though they both have very strong fight compositions, and so I'm kind of in this place looking at them where anything could happen, especially looking at that Nunu and that Sejuani pick. So
we'll have to see. In the top lane, it's going to be that Ornn once again for Quest for Ions versus Darius this time around. Darius champion that once he hits 6, pretty strong, definitely enjoys dropping that axe as it's his own version of a giant hammer onto Ornn. And I'm really curious to see how aggressive Biosharp decides to play at the very beginning of the game, because if level 1, you're trying to shove it into the opponent's face, using your bleed stacks effectively to constantly force them to either be healing or deal with a bit by bit that bleed over time, you can get some good harassment down. On the opposite side, Darius is a melee champion. Ornn has his knock-up, his damage, his brittle stacks. He can add an extra poke. We saw that from quest for Ions again, and that's what makes me a little bit nervous for Darius. He's going to have to use the minion wave to be able to effectively work around Ornn, make sure that he's getting in those hits every now and then, but not taking too much damage.
For sure, but on the contrary, you also have to acknowledge the fact that Darius with Conqueror is going to absolutely just run his way through these fights. 100% if Ornn chooses to stay in these trades earlier, specifically for too long, it's going to cause problems for him. And it's almost inevitably going to transition a little bit harder post 6, you're going to see it. So I feel like it depends on how they both play this. Quest does have a lot of potential in these fights, but he just has to be really careful, especially with the mobility that Wife has.
The thing that I like for the side of Little Monkeys, though, with that Ornn, and especially combined with the Sejuani and Lux, including Morgana, I guess, as well, when I'm looking at their roster, they have so much in Chosen Engaged. Now, I say that because it means that you can choose whether or not to engage a fight. Morgana's Dark Binding is so incredibly long range, you can throw it from a distance. If it lands on somebody, you get to make the decision. Do I want to go for this, or do I just let that binding hit, back out, wait for the cooldown, start again? Same thing with Lux's binding, same thing with the Sejuani and the Ornn ultimates. Now, it's a little more expensive with the Sejuani and the Ornn, but again, you throw it out, and as soon as you're throwing it out, you see where the enemy team lines up, you then make the decision, do I really want to go in on this, or do I want to just back away, wait for the ult to come off a cooldown, and try again at a later time? They're not as massively committal as, look at the Galio, right? If Nunu is coming in, speeding himself in with a snowball, it's very easy for him to overdive. He's a melee champion, he's got to be right up close and personal to you, especially to make use of that ultimate. Galio also a dive in, Kai'Sa also a dive in. So on the side of Grin, they have to choose their engagements very carefully. They have to commit 110% with everything that they've got, otherwise they could very easily leave someone out to dry who's just eventually going to fall. Before we get too much further, let's run through the players and the champions. We've already seen, excuse me, Literal Monkeys, but we get to actually see them on some new champions this time around. For the quest of Ions, he's not a new champion, playing the Ornn in the top lane. Pakapal with the Sejuani in the jungle. Why are you running on the Lux in the mid lane? Traxon with the Jinx in the bottom lane. Jinx once again, as well as bottom lane ADC, Jinx. And Zufo with the Morgana support to round out Literal Monkey's compositions. Do you want to run through Grin, or shall I?
I can do it. So Bisharp is pulling out that Darius. Are we calling that Wife, or is it... How do you pronounce that? There's a... I
just call it Wife. They've actually played on the stream before as well, and there's a J, but you know what? That's too complicated to say. We're not going to say the whole game. We're just going to say Wife.
All right, so we'll pull it up. Wow.
There you go. All right, we're doing it.
Oh,
the whole game. The whole game long. Let's do it. Apparently, Zebra has told us how to say this Nunu's name.
Pulling out the Nunu and the Willow right there. Midmaster on the Syndra, Minato on the Kai'Sa, and Majin Buu on the Galio.
Now we've gotten through the players. It took a little bit of a tongue twister to make it, but we can discuss and look at the compositions a little bit more. We were saying from the side of Grin, they have a they have to choose very carefully what dives they want to make. But as you mentioned earlier, the Wombo combo, a Nunu ultimate into a Galio ultimate into a Kai'Sa Syndra, from a distance damage, and then Kai'Sa can follow into the back line. You round it all out with the Darius just cleaving through the enemy team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That could be pretty powerful if they can find that 5v5.
Certainly agree with that. Another thing that I'd like to point out here, Literal Monkeys does have the option of playing back and looking for these picks, as opposed to, Majin Buu decides that he wants to fight, he is committed to that fight. Bisharp decides that he wants to fight, they have no out there. The only person who really has that option of taking a pick would be Midmaster. He has his stun, and after that, they essentially have to fully commit to something. Whereas they have that Lux from Why Are You Running and Zufo on the Morgana, they have the option of taking picks.
And once we're back on the picking side of things for the composition, that means, again, the conversation turns to vision. It's very difficult to find picks if you can't see the enemy team. It's much easier if you can. And so from the side of Literal Monkeys, their vision placement and playing around what they can see, making sure they're dropping those wards, having control with those control wards, the Scuttle Crab control is going to be critical to land those Dark Bindings and the Lux Light Bindings. You kind of got the mixture of the two bindings. Mix them together, you just got CC for days.
100%. No. That being said, I like to point out that Kaisa has decided to opt for the cleanse, which is kind of what I would have thought that Syndra would want to go for, especially considering how much she's going to struggle on the mobility front in the early game, with Pack-a-Paul being in a position to make his life very difficult in this early game.
All right, now we got some pretty skins coming out. Firecracker Sejuani, Battle Academia Lux Prestige Edition. Why are you running? I don't know if you're rich or you just grinded out a bajillion tokens, but either way, I'm jealous. Star Guardian Lux, Exiled Morgana, the IG Kaisa that is not going to be in the MSI Finals. Yes, my brain is exploded about that. Team Liquid go NA. They have a chance. It's NA versus EU Finals at MSI, which I could not have predicted that ending if you guys are a fan of either one, but hopefully you're all NA fans. Drop a little hashtag NA in the chat. Let us know that you're supporting as well. I gotta ask you, Zebra, are you a Team Liquid fan?
I can't say that I've followed Team Liquid since probably Season 5, so it's been a hot second, honestly.
Well, whether you're a fan of Team Liquid specifically, or just the fact that they're the NA representative in a finals at an international event, it's something that I have been following Liquid for a while. I enjoy them. I wouldn't say they're my favorite team to watch play, but they're pretty strong. However, the fact that they are the finalists in the MSI international event is definitely one that I can be excited about. But we're not talking about those games. We're talking about this game right here. Game number 2 for the day. Literal Monkeys taking on Gross Incompetence in game number 2. We'll see how these two teams line up, and whether or not Literal Monkeys, with a bit of a early start to the tournament, a nice win on their side in game number 1, they can find themselves a little bit of something crazy in game number 2, considering we got a 5-man stack headed to the top side. Might be looking to drop that Darius in the tri-brush if they can get there fast enough.
For sure. Now we are going to see a traditional 5-man line of scrimmage from Grin. I don't think they're going to find anything other than...
He's not standing in the middle of the brush, so if Morgana throws out that Dark Binding, it's still going to land, but forces the flash. Okay, they did not find First Blood, but they did find a flash, so small advantage to Quest for Ions in the top lane.
Very nice decision opting for that top lane, but it looks like they're going to take advantage of that and invade for the red.
Syndra kind of roaming up, just saying hi. But as you said, the invade from the side of Grin to the bottom side red. Now, what I want to see from them is if they try to do anything crazy to find an early kill themselves. No, they're just going to ward and walk away for now. Another thing sometimes the bottom laners do is they sit in that tri-brush down here, kind of waiting for the enemy team ADC to walk through, but they want the Nunu to have a good start to the game, so instead they will head there, and Leash and Sejuani kind of feeling that there might be that invade on the bottom side, heads and starts blue.
Now, I personally feel like both junglers starting blue here is a very smart decision from both sides. Pack-a-Paul noting that they do likely have his red warded and deciding to opt into the opposite start. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw vertical pathing from either of these junglers.
Yeah, it looks like Nunu is going to be headed directly in. We'll see if he catches sight of Sejuani as she started the Wolves and could head down as well. Another thing to note is it's an Ocean Drake start. Now, last game, Literal Monkeys gave themselves an Ocean Drake early, which was pretty nice for that laning phase, keep up that sustain, especially on that Ornn on the top side who can already sustain with his own items. But we'll see if either team focus that quickly this game, or whether or not it kind of sits around till the later stages of the laning phase, maybe even into the skirmishes, as the junglers are going to be fighting. Wife getting a little bit of healing, the smite and the bite gets the red buff as well. How did he do that? Sejuani going to continue to deal damage, forces the flash out of the Nunu to escape. Sejuani not ready to commit that flash over the wall, and a great roam from Grin's bottom lane to make sure Nunu gets that red buff steal and gets out alive.
Very nicely played from Wife there. Personally, I feel like the pathing of Majin Buu there to go make sure that Wife made it out was very nice. If Pack-a-Paul had committed to that, he would have surely been taunted immediately. Very nicely executed.
So nice steal there. We'll see whether Sejuani decides to respond in turn or just go for that full clear on the bottom side, which is looking what she's doing right now. Scuttle Crowds will come up here shortly, which of course, again, when we're talking about that pick possibility from Literal Monkeys, they want to have control over. At the moment, though, considering that it's still very early into the laning phase, they're just focused on this CSing, as this Jinx is getting some solid shove into the bottom lane and doing a fantastic job of keeping up with mana as well. One of the things you sometimes see from Jinxes that are shoving is they rely too heavily on those rockets and lose a lot of mana.
For sure. Now, the biggest issue that we currently have with Jinx and that mana dependency is having to choose between abusing your range with those rockets and having the mana available for chompers, especially, you know, post 3 where we are right now. It's certainly something that a lot of Jinx players suffer with.
All right, for Literal Monkeys, they've got that Sejuani in the bottom lane. She's only down to about half health, but again, when your jungler's trying to gank a lane that's pretty shoved up, it's not going to be that successful. Maybe a fight in the top side with the Darius who's shoving Ornn well underneath his own turret is more your style. But either way, Sejuani just wasting a touch of time, down a little bit of CS. Nunu is on that top side as well. I'm actually curious to see whether he's sitting around to try to make his own sneaky gank in the lane. It does look like he may be attempting that as he's walking around by the Tri-Brush. Light Binding going to land onto the Syndra in the mid lane, but she gets a stun back onto Lux just to trade a CC.
Now, I'm very interested to see, with these smaller trades in the mid lane, how the Ignite from both of these sides comes into play here. Especially considering we do have the Electrocute Syndra coming in.
So she's looking to kind of stack damage. You're going to be waiting for Midmaster to really see an opportunity and go all in, land every spell in conjunction. Layer in a couple of auto attacks for good measure, why not? However, with Midmaster low mana, probably just a CC fest until level 6. Galio Tonka be used in the bottom lane just to absorb a little bit of damage, goes back in, but in the meantime, fight on the top side is Bishop, getting a little bit of poke onto Ornn. I guess there wasn't that much action in the bottom side if we're going to see up here just because of those bleed stacks. Nunu going to start up a slime ball, come running around. Quest for Ions doesn't have his ultimate yet. He's going to try to rush his way out. There was a Sejuani invading the enemy jungle. The snowball's just going to land knockup, but Sejuani is here. They're turning for the CC. Brittle stacks onto the Nunu, but it's not going to be enough. Ornn still goes down. Lux has roamed up. Going to be trying to help take down the Nunu, but he's been able to walk away for now. Will cheering them on as Midmaster comes up, flashing in to secure first blood, or second blood of the game for Grin. Why are you running? Almost taking down the Darius with the Aerie, but it's not going to be enough damage. And so with 2 members' health bars just smidged in the green, Grin is able to come out with a win in that fight.
That was so unfortunate for Literal Monkeys, especially considering Why Are You Running did burn the flash, came up and wasn't able to land 3 of those 4 abilities, which is super unfortunate there. Caused Paul to fall, and Quest for Lions just took too much damage as soon as the Conqueror kicked in, along with the bleed stacks.
You throw enough, you eventually land something. I like Midmaster's style, though, who says, you know what, it's really hard to miss when I'm point blank range. I'm going to flash on top of you before throwing out my spells to make sure it lands. Even though it did burn flash, did come out successful with a early kill, and now can use that to the advantage in the mid lane with that mana. Should be hitting 6 pretty early. Why Are You Running? Getting back to lane a little bit faster. Did hit 6 first, so we'll have that ultimate available. Final Spark, pretty powerful, but most especially as the game gets late, as its cooldown feels like literally 6 seconds.
For sure. Now, that being said, I love the energy that comes along with Midmaster's melee Syndra plan. I'm certainly on board with that.
We'll see if that comes out again once Flash comes back up. Both mid laners' flashes are down, about even on the cooldown there, so we'll keep an eye on that. As, again, no one focusing on the Ocean Drake so far. Those junglers kind of fighting around the top side and then heading toward the bottom side jungle. Nunu may be gifting over this blue buff to the Syndra, which would be pretty nice for her.
For sure, but Nunu in the early game, not as mana dependent as he maybe used to be, especially now that Ocean Drake's available. If they're able to land that, that decision is totally justified.
I also like the cleanse coming out from the Kai'Sa in the bottom lane. When you're looking at that Morgana, a single Dark Binding could spell death, especially in that mid game, because you got that chain CC from the Sejuani, the Lux, etc. And so taking that cleanse, even though it means that you're down a heal, as Galio was the one who's carrying that for them, the Kai'Sa still should be able to survive when it comes to those later game stage fights. That said, you're seeing the response as well from Grin's bottom lane. Galio not taking Ignite means less aggression, so they're playing back passively, they're staying even with Jinx and farm, they're making sure that as Jinx is trying to shove that wave in, they're clearing just enough of those minions to stay outside of that turn range, stay in a position, or stay even when it comes to that farm, allowing them to just continue to scale with the members of Literal Monkeys.
And another thing about that, though, the option to very clearly play back and take this lane that should, because of its nature, be super aggressive, and opting to go for the Doran Shield, opting to go for that tier first item, super, super good choice. It doesn't necessarily hurt them as much as you would think it should.
Dark Chaos, there is a schedule for this. There's a Discord that I can link you in a little bit that you can jump in, catch sight of that. At the moment, we're just filling out the Group C first couple of games. We're doing 3 of those and then switching over to Group D for their last 3 games. This is the group stage for the Amateur Invitational. A little bit of a skirmish on that bottom side. The Morgana getting a Dark Binding down, not going to be that much, but the fight on the top side is what you want as the Sejuani has the ultimate. Horn going to be called as well. Goodbye, Bisharp. That's going to be the first kill of the game for Literal Monkeys as they find themselves an advantage, and fortunately for them, it is on the Ornn as well, who carried them through the early portion of the game last time around. So Literal Monkeys happy to have that, but now the Nunu can gank to the bottom side and try to respond. We'll see if the snowball is going to land. The Black Shield from Morgana is good, but the Galio taunt is there as well. The Flash Force out from the Jinx will live. They're going to burn the heal as well in that bottom lane. So Summoners down for Little Monkeys in the bottom lane, but a good play around the Black Shield from the bottom lane of Grin.
For sure, not only just the Black Shield, but as well as that binding as Galio went back for the knockup. He ended up bound and was unable to follow through with the CC, probably saving Traxxas life.
Alright, well, the Ocean Drake can be started up by Grin, been able to find that for themselves. That's a pretty nice, as you said, start, as well as that kind of allows Nunu to give more of these blue buffs over to the Syndra in the mid lane, which is really, really powerful, as well as, I think, that overall health regen for the Darius and the Galio, who are going to need to be that late game tanks, going to be pretty nice. Well, not so much the Darius, more Nunu and Galio, but still nice to have on your team, as a little bit of skirmish in the mid lane. Not going to do that much. Nunu going to find some slows, take a little bite out of the pig's butt. They're going to walk away. No pork chops for them yet.
Of course, a way you could put that, understandable. That being said, we do have Pakapal still turning his focus to bot lane, it looks, as he goes for that reset there. Grin does have very nice vision around that dragon. So that's certainly good, especially if Pakapal decides to go for any bot lane ganks here in the future. That being said, Quest for Lens definitely holding his own rather efficiently here.
And once again, coming out with a CS lead. Look at that, 88 CS to 64 at the 11-minute mark. Sure, it's not the 10 CS per minute that you're looking for in God tier status, but nobody in this game is Faker. Only Faker can be Faker, who's, by the way, out of MSI Finals. A nice stun there from Syndra. Ooh, throws out that ultimate Unleash power, dropping where you're running low, and then burning Flash to get out of that turret range. Interesting choice there by Midmaster, however, still finding a little bit of pressure. The Nunu's going to come in as well with a snowball. We'll see if that's going to be able to find a lockdown. Hold on, Lux damage comes out. Final Spark, dropping wife low. Husband's not going to be pleased with that, as Nunu has to back away. The gank fails, but they do get the flash out of the Lux.
Very nicely played. Lux turning and popping that ult just to ensure that they weren't really looking for a re-engage. Certainly a very nice choice there as Pakapal looks for a counter gank.
Oh yeah, here comes the Sejuani, throws out that ultimate, is going to miss. Midmaster looks for the kill instead, trying to throw out the damage. The Ignite comes ticking down, picks up the Lux, and the Syndra with low health just get taken out by the flail. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but Midmaster does come up with a kill and a 1v2, so small lead for Grin there in the mid lane.
Very nice pickup from Midmaster. Unfortunately, Why Are You Running just didn't really respect the Syndra damage. But going for that 1-for-1 was really smart.
Well, if you get rooted up, you can still throw out damage, and that's what Syndra did, taking down the Lux. As the jungler is going to be doing a little wet noodle slapping fight. Nunu ultimate going to drop Sejuani down to about half, but here comes the Darius. This could be Bishop's first kill of the game. He doesn't have flash. He's going to have to walk this in to land the apprehend. A little bit of Sejuani slow, but it's not going to be enough. There's the apprehend. Follow it up. Didn't even use the ultimate. Says, I'll save it for someone a little bit more healthy, and gets himself his second kill of the game.
Very nicely done. Still a significant amount of CS behind Quest there, but that second kill certainly going to help him get his feet back under him. That being said, in the bot lane and mid lane, we are still looking at pretty even CS as well. Midmaster is doing a phenomenal job, though, of holding his own 2-1 against Why Are You Running?
Yeah, and as mentioned in the chat by Quicksilver, it is a Mana Moon on the Kaisa. So, bit of an interesting pickup there, especially considering those changes to Rage Blade. It's kind of players adapting to try some different builds, so she will be happy to have that mana when it comes to spamming out those abilities, plus the AD, but definitely wants to get at least one more item before truly coming online. The Jinx still waiting for probably the Infinity Edge to start the game off with.
For sure. At this point, she should have, she should potentially have the gold for it with her CS, unless I just don't know how to math today.
Quick maths, it's hard. We're casters. We don't do that stuff.
Quick maths. I'm not an analyst. Okay. So as we wait for Jinx to come online, Pakapal certainly has his work cut out for him, as Kaisa has that full mana mune. Certainly something to look out for.
Want to check real quick. It's another Ocean Drake coming up here, so double Oceans. Great for teams that want to siege. And again, when you're looking at literal monkeys, that would be nice for them to have because they have so much range and so much potential for that poke. However, they lost that first early game Ocean Drake, and so it's more imperative on them to at least match those Ocean Drakes and not to continue to give them up to Grin. Boar rush by the Sejuani. Gets herself out of harm's way for now, but Nunu's still going to try to chase it in, trying to look for the CC lock. Stuns up the Sejuani. She's dropping low. Nunu ultimate going to be committed to try to finish her off. The TP coming in from the Ornn as well. That's going to be Darius TPing on the backside. Morgana goes golden. The chain's not going to do that much. The Ornn Horde going to be knocked straight into the members of Grin. They are dropping like flies as the shots from the Jinx picks off the Kaisa with the zap. Takes down the Galio as well. Triple kill for Traxon. Somebody mentioned in the chat that he's got to pop off this game. And when you quadra on the Jinx, that is exactly how you just tear this game open for the side of literal monkeys.
4-0, picking up a quadra at 15 minutes is super, super huge for Traxon, especially considering he hasn't even purchased the IE yet. That was such a horrific misstep from Grin, and they certainly paid for it there. So really now the question becomes, are they able to correct that mistake in time, or is it just too late?
They burned so many spells looking for the Sejuani. When you think about the fact that there was multiple members of literal monkeys all packed into that one tribe rush, and you're thinking the AoE from the Galio, the AoE from the Nunu, oh, how that would stack up with the AoE damage out of Syndra. But no, they burn everything on one member, the tankiest member of literal monkeys, and without those cooldowns, they lose the fight. Give a quadra kill over to the Jinx. Excuse me, I don't have to do quick maths when Jinx has already 1,300 gold and 4 kills. I think she's got enough for Infinity Edge, and now we'll also add that extra zeal to the items and making sure that she is well on her way into a 2-item power spike.
I mean, at that point, we've kind of just gone from quick maths to quick estimates, and I estimate that this Jinx either needs to be banned or she is going to continue to absolutely tear everybody apart.
Could be for this group stage. 2 Jinxes, 2 carries is what it's looking like for Traxon so far. We'll see if Grin can respond as they're looking to fight at the top side. The Scuttle or the Herald will be picked up by the Sejuani, so Pakapal able to secure that for the side of literal monkeys, and they disengage a fight. And I think they had the man advantage, so they weren't too nervous about that. And it was really Grin saying, you know what, we already lost the Rift Herald. Let's back away before we lose any members as well.
Now let's talk about this lane swap here, pre-first tower, because I feel like it's a very nice choice, especially considering how well off Traxon currently is. Putting them into this lane swap gives Traxon sort of an advantage that he needs positionally on this map, especially coming into, what, 30 minutes until Baron spawns?
Oh, tower shot gonna poke away a little bit on the Ornn. Darius is gonna continue to go in. He's got that ultimate available. We'll see if Decimation can come down. Throws it out a little bit early, so the bleeding stacks might not be enough to take down the Ornn. He was worried that the Ornn would get out of range, and Quest for Ion survives solo in that bottom lane. Still gives pressure to Bisharp, but even still, or I could say Bishop. I don't know why I'm saying Bisharp. Bishop on that bottom side, but Ornn lives, which is really good for Literal Monkeys.
For sure. Now, that being said, Literal Monkeys is currently in a position where if they manage to take down that top tower as well as that bot tower, by the time Baron spawns, they will 100% be in the place that they need to be to just take that Baron, no consequence. So I feel like that's really where they need to be right now. And if they manage to force this fight successfully, it'll definitely be
my soldiers march
which is kind of what they want in this instance.
The Rift Herald going to be spawned on the top side. Sejuani, as well as the 3 other members of Literal Monkeys, moving in, securing this top lane turret. That will be first turret of the game, going over to the blue team as the bottom lane Ornn has responded, and again continuing to defend against Darius, who wants to push that in. He is going to have his ultimate available shortly, so he could try to do what he did earlier again to find some pressure for the side of Grin, but they are being shoved back on that top side as Shelly gonna get a second slam off onto the second tier turret and will be abandoned by Literal Monkeys to fall to the hands of Grin.
Now, that being said, Bishop going from almost killing Quest for Lorenz on his own to being entirely outshaded.
Oh, the Nunu ultimate gonna be called as they're fighting around the jungle. There's the Sejuani ultimate used as well. Mid-Master's rooted. The CC Chains takes down the Syndra. 2 quick kills for Literal Monkeys, and they are doing a fantastic job. If they are monkeys, they're hitting the buttons well.
They're just very precise monkeys. That being said, Quest doing a phenomenal job of holding up Bishop. Probably going to cost them 2 towers here, at least that one. And we are looking at around a minute for Dragon and Baron.
Believe in our future. Believe
All
in
right.
our
So it does
future.
look like Wife is looking... yeah, is probably going to look for something here, potentially on the Dragon side of things.
Well, this is where, from the side of Grin, you are sitting at about 5,000 gold behind. That's not the end of the world, but it means that team fights are going to be difficult. And for a team that wants to be team fighting, when you're that far behind, your items behind. Jinx having completed a second item now, the Runan's Hurricane. As Kais is still sitting on 1 and a couple thrift store items. You still only have 1.5 on that Syndra. She doesn't have the Zhonya's yet. And so they cannot go for a big 5v5 or even 4v4 fight. They have to look for the skirmishing, which again, goes back to they need to have these wards, they need to be able to have vision on where Literal Monkeys are going to, and they may try to fight around this Ocean Drake, but Literal Monkeys are right on their tail.
For sure. Now, that being said, Literal Monkeys is, as we discussed earlier, in a position
Oh, the Syndra's cut out!
that.
Oh, that's the chain CC again. You have the range engage. Ornn comes from behind. They've been able to pick that one up. Grin unable to respond. They just walk away, heads hanging low as a third Ocean Drake is going to go down. The second one for Literal Monkeys.
And they do have the pressure that they need if they were so inclined to force a Baron at any point around this time. They definitely have the pressure that they need for that, especially considering Quest does have that teleport up. And they're in a position where Grin really, really wanted to force fights, and then as soon as Jinx got that quadra kill, everything in their plan had to change. And that's so unfortunate for them, especially considering they had such a good fight comp with that Galio, with the Nunu, and especially with the Darius. And watching that unfold is certainly interesting.
So, as we're looking at a bit of a calmer moment with both teams kind of positioning and now trying to secure some vision around the Baron, let's talk about the implications for the tournament as a whole. So far, Literal Monkeys have shown in game number 1, they are quite happy to take team fights, and they're excellent at them as well. Game number 2, a little bit of a slower start, but again, doing fantastically, and they put a lot of pressure onto Traxxon in this bottom lane AD carry role, as well as in the top lane. Someone to keep your eyes on, Quest for Ions, double Ornn games, and so far doing very well. Not as much of a carry as game number 1, 1-1 and for his line, but still very strong. So progressing forward through the tournament, if they make it out of the group stage and move on into the quarterfinals, which will be tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, look for Literal Monkeys, their opponents, if they do their research, hopefully will know to at least ban away this Jinx and maybe take the Ornn away as well.
For sure, at least one of them. Of course, Jinx on the preferable end of things. That being said, Jinx has hit her Runaan's power spike and is currently working on what I presume to be her rapid fire cannon, which means that she is sitting pretty in terms of damage. They have to be incredibly careful at this point. Otherwise, Jinx is allowed to simply right-click on them and they will cease to exist.
Exactly. I mean, she just sits there auto-attacking away. She's going to be dealing amazing amounts of damage. She's finished that Runaan's Hurricane, as I mentioned earlier, but now has an additional Zeal as well, so attack speed is going to be truly PogChamp. And once they get onto a turret as well, we talked about the siege potential, that structure is going to fall apart. As Darius is trying to get a little bit of fight on the bottom side, he's got that ultimate, but Ornn's got his own bit of damage coming in as well. The Mormogs try to reset the fight, throws it out. Great flash from Bisharp will make sure that that ultimate does not land, so he can try to keep up that pressure. But the 4v4 fight here into the mid lane. They found one route into the zap. There's a Sejuani ultimate's not going to land, but the final spark cannot be dodged. That's going to be the Nunu ultimate, but you cannot stop the monkeys. They will take down all of you as Lux will be able to pick up a double kill for the blue team. And with the jungler going down, Wife being caught out there, they can turn onto the Baron, and I do not see how Grin can try to steal this away.
That being said, Why Are You Running, currently sitting at 4-1-6, is definitely doing a phenomenal job of sitting in that place as essentially just allowed to do whatever she wants at this point in terms of as long as she hits that binding, it's essentially game over, as you would expect from a Lux player. And again, being allowed to force this Baron at this point is super, super huge for them, especially considering how nicely all of their pressure is distributed in their side lanes, as well as this mid lane, which mid-inner is currently almost ready to fall. So if they decide to sneeze on it a little too hard, it's going to fall.
And you're talking about that one binding from the Lux. You also get to double that up with the Morgana. You also get to triple that up with the Sejuani ultimate. So there are so many fishing tools. You know what? It's not a fishing line that Literal Monkeys has. They are casting nets into the enemy team, and they are coming up successful time and time again as Quest for Ions maybe biting off a little more than he could chew as the entire enemy team has come for him. He's going to flash the wall, but the Galio is prepared, has the CC, the taunt as well as the knock-up. The Ornn going to go ahead and call the Forge God, but will still go down, just burning a little bit of time. With that time, that is Literal Monkeys picking up the mid lane second tier turret, so they get a little bit back for themselves. Currently, turret-wise, 4-0. Impressive for Literal Monkeys as they're looking for an inhibitor turret as well. That will fall. The inhibitor up next, and Jinx is going to just start to tear it down. Gatling gun firing away, and they secure themselves the first inhibitor of the game.
And that does look like they are going to turn their attention immediately onto that top lane, especially considering Quest does have that teleport for whenever he's up. They are currently sitting at a 9k gold lead, which is insane.
Yeah,
this is almost damning.
This is where you're looking at potentially the game being over. It's not quite a go next, but it's definitely a struggle for the side of Grin.
It's certainly an F to pay respect.
Ooh, two-man stun by the Syndra. Darius is still going to go in. The apprehend onto the Lux, forcing the flash. Galio tries to get in as well. The taunt's going to be dropped. The final spark from Lux not going to do that much. Galio ultimate to disengage the fight. All the members of Looking for the Literal Monkeys having to back away, but now they have burned the health of Grin. The siege, the poking, mid-master, jaws on, yes, this Sejuani ultimate, but it doesn't matter. Hold on, it's still gonna be Sejuani flashing it to get the Q and take him down. Who cares about inhibitors when you can walk through the enemy team base? Sejuani and Ornn are absolutely massive tanks, taking up the fountain as well to give more kills to Literal Monkeys, whose minions are taking out the top lane turret. They're securing a second inhibitor for themselves. They have the Baron buff. They find the chain CC onto Darius as well. Bishop trying to escape. He's running around those turrets. He heads back to the fountain. fountain because that's the only place that you can hide. The final spark going to drop him low, but he will heal back up. It's still going to be crying tears on the fountain as literal monkeys have devastated this game, continuing to poke away onto the fountain itself. They are looking for the win. A couple extra kills. Darius is able to sneak with the Jinx away with the help of the fountain, and the game will end with literal monkeys 14 kills to 7 and an 11,000 gold lead.
Very nicely executed from Literal Monkeys. An incredible 9-0 win. Just below 30 minutes. Very nicely done. And just like that, we have another reason to ban that oh so clean Jinx in these upcoming games.
Oh, yes. Take the Jinx out, take the Ornn out, and Sejuani was banned away game number 1. And check out game number 2, the stat line. 3, 3, and 11. 10,000 gold just underneath the Jinx for total gold that game. So you can see that Pakapal, not only a good farmer, but also happy to continuously try to make those plays, set the team up. One of the things I hate to see when you've got a Sejuani is them sitting back, never committing to throwing out that ultimate, because you know what? If it doesn't hit, I'm afraid that it won't do anything, but instead Sejuani able to throw it again and again, saying, I got my ult, let's use it. Maybe it didn't find the stun onto the Syndra in the mid lane on mid master early on. However, the slows were enough for them to find that kill, and then it just kind of progressed from there as Little Monkeys just took over the game.
Absolutely, and why are you running, especially in that mid to late game, certainly played a huge part in them scaling their way just absolutely into just this indomitable part of the game where they're almost at a 10k gold lead and they're allowed to just plow through the enemy team.
All right, well, with that, is there anyone else that you see that you particularly want to shout out, especially as game number 3 coming up here shortly? We will see Grin back taking on 5 caster minions in a miniature, not quite, losers bracket, if you will, between the two teams, as both of them have lost to Literal Monkeys, and they will be going head-to-head. What can Grin do to find themselves a bit more security and actually coming out with the win in game number 3?
Oh gosh, I'd certainly have to say, Grin would certainly be in a position where they need to ban out the Jinx. They need to ban out the Jinx. They have to at least...
They're not facing off against Literal Monkeys. I didn't mind to interrupt. And yeah, they're facing the losers of 5 caster minions. So that's quite all right. They're facing the losers in game number 1, 5 caster minions. And so they are going to be facing... So those two teams, they've not played yet. It'll be the first time they're playing today.
You know what? Ban Jinx anyway.
Ban Jinx anyway! I love it! That is excellent advice.
Jinx anyway.
All right, take those hyperscalers away. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. Glad you're enjoying the show. If you are, feel free to hit that follow button. It helps me out a ton, as well as you can use the exclamation point Twitter if you want to see some extra shenanigans that I get into. We will be right... Oh, also, go follow... I don't know, do you have a Twitter, Zebra?
Yeah,
if you do...
twitch.tv/Zebrasu.
All right, DM me and I'll drop it in the Twitch chat so that way they can follow you as well. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.